Morning,
Morning,
Bill.
David.
You're number one today, Bill.
My goodness, the world will stop spinning.
No.
Let me turn on a light here.
And Mr. Nagel, we have a wonderful picture. Oh, there you are.
Yep. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Well, we've got the bills.
We do.
Thank you for your checks.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
How are things down in the south, Bill?
Yeah, it's a little cool here. We've had a real absence of rain for a long time.
Ah,
Supposed to have a rainy weekend coming up, so we're hoping that'll happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had some super hot weather, and then we've had some pretty chilly weather in the 30s and threatening frost right where we are.
Wow.
For the bet. And
Well, a few days ago we had 4.5 inches of rain.
yeah, wow, that's a little more than I would want at once.
Well, it was spread over a day or so.
No, that's good. Actually, that wouldn't be too bad, but if it wasn't a gully washer.
Well, I think it was in some places, but wasn't too bad here.
Yeah,
Kept coming down. Good for our well.
yeah, that's important.
Aha.
That's a Joanne sighting.
Good morning, it's me. Yeah,
Good morning.
it's me. No, yeah, I mean I've been up forever, so that's probably part of it.
Ah, I was going to say you don't sound too thrilled with this
No, no,
day.
no. Well, I hate to be late, and I thought I was like kind of pulling it all together, but there's always kind of like one more thing I think I can get done before the next thing, and doesn't always work out that way.
I, maybe you have too many things.
Yeah, I do. I do. And then I think I had something done yesterday, or a couple of things
Yeah.
popped up. One was Harry Belafonte had received one of the War Resisters League awards at our 90th anniversary, which is 10 years ago. So it
Oh,
felt like we needed to do something. We have these wonderful pictures of him, and he was with Dan Ellsberg and Joan Baez at this big event we did.
Wow.
So then you're like, you drop everything to kind of get something up quickly, right? Like, okay, who's got that picture, and need a
yeah.
big high resolution of it, and where's that article online, blah, 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 drop everything, do it. Anyway, that's too much happens
That's right.
in my life.
So, yeah, we have the problem of too many things on our list too. I think a good idea would be to have on your list for a week or so would be to take something off of your list without
Yeah.
doing
Well, I'm actually going away for 5 days on Friday morning, but then
Oh,
everybody
good.
wants to meet with me, yesterday, like, oh my God, you're going? I'm
How
not
could that
working on
be?
those 5 days. I'm going to see old friends. We held this off for 3 years because of the pandemic. So the old college friends, there's four of us who get together
Oh,
every 5,
nice.
or this time 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, I take a break. You're right. Have a Sabbath, whatever it is, that you need to just kind of, yeah, breathe. Breathe.
Well, let's see. Um,
Adam,
oh, I don't know whether I told you or not, but we're going to San Francisco in May 10th, which of course is a Wednesday. Uh,
Okay.
I won't be functioning again the next Wednesday either. So the 10th and the 17th, there will not be class.
Okay.
But there will be next week.
Very good.
If you'd like to have that in your schedule, give you a break, a chance to practice everything,
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
which isn't a bad thing.
No.
I kind of loading you up with a lot of stuff in this training. So,
Well, it's great that you're going to San Francisco.
well, yeah, we're looking forward to seeing we'll see all three of the boys and our grand puppy. Uh,
Great.
and so, yeah, we're looking forward to it. And our daughter-in-law, who's now a full nurse working in a neurological unit.
Well,
Wow. Wow.
I'm very happy.
Good. Good. That's cool.
Yeah. So, so Adam had alerted us that he might not make it. At least he hasn't so far. He's got a lot going on right at the moment in the hospital. So, questions? Concerns?
observations.
Yes.
No, I don't have questions. I think that just really focusing more on the rotation, I've realized more in number one. I think I mentioned this a little bit last week, but I still struggle more in number one than and particularly when my arms are coming in, I move them too quickly. I get in place too quickly. They go up straight, so just kind of going slow enough to just keep the rotation going is and a challenge this week. So
That's a challenge.
yeah, it is, because and especially some of it's a little bit of undoing, but and I don't find it with the others. That the interesting thing is I don't think 2 through 6 is just the rotation goes much better. It's really the arms going up and coming down and just that, a little bit of that. So that's but I know where I'm supposed to be. It's just not there consistently.
Well, that's a really important step. That if you know what you want to be doing,
And you do it every so often.
right. At first you do it every so often, and gradually it gets to where you're doing it more consistently. So good. Either Bill have anything you'd like to throw into our thinking today?
Not particularly. I was mostly working on the Dantian when I was working at all. So
Is that is that an admission?
yes.
Mr. Bynum, you
Yeah, I think, well, I didn't make it last week, but then, I've been working on the trying to feel a connection with the spine with the twisting, as the initiating, and still having trouble finishing twisting out or in before it's appropriate to have finished. and getting to a point and then having to transition from twisting out to twisting in be real smooth has
right.
been a thing. And I've continued to do just iterations of 10 mostly. I get that it just feels good, and I seem to pay better attention to the details.
Mm.
I don't really consider it doing the exercise, but getting ready to do it, I guess. I still feel like I'm getting
I
ready
like it.
to do something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a growth process. Think of it that way.
Yeah.
It is, you know, and if you're doing 10 repetitions, that's really, I think, just fine.
Uh-huh.
None of us are spring chickens except maybe for Adam. Uh,
Hmm.
but as you get older, doing a smaller number of repetitions is perfectly appropriate. That kind of depends on what your body will allow you to do, because the intention here is not to exhaust yourself, because then it's a negative.
Mhm.
So you need to find what's an appropriate amount for you to do that allows you to develop the full functioning of the practice.
Mhm. Yeah. I will say that whether I do 10 or 20, unless I have some pain in some joint going on, which does happen, I always feel energized when I finish. And so I think so something good is happening in there. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
I think that's for me, it's like they're having some mornings where I'm like, I don't have time. And then I'm like, I can at least do 6. And then you feel that you feel energized, and then that kind of, helps you carve out time the next, as much as you can for at least 10, but I think I'd rather do 6 than nothing. I don't think, and so I just kind of feel like that's kind of been my compromise to make sure I get something done most days.
Yeah.
Great.
That's good. Well, we're going to look at another element today, just so you don't get bored.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is a main problem with this.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's no short and quick way to show all the openings and closings within the joints and cavities of the body. There's simply too many of them. And even though the principles behind opening and closing are not terribly complex, all the different ways of opening and closing all follow the same principles. They can be done differently depending on the specifics of how the structure of the joints can have differences. But most of your joints are ball and socket, but not all of them. And with the ones that are not the same principles apply, but how they are done is different. Now, if you want more information, there is a whole year training that was just focused on opening and closing the joints and cavities of the body, and how it's applied, how to implement them. And you can find that actually on energyarts.com if you want to go further into this. However, within this training of gods, I will show you how to incorporate opening and closing in here. But a few points first from the previous training. And I might say that training takes about a full year. Joanne probably remembers when we went through that, because she has done it. I'll just say this is not a quick thing. It takes a while, like everything else. So when you are outwardly lengthening a joint or a cavity, you open your joint to 70% plus or minus. And what I might say is that I think I want to clarify that thought a little bit. Is that yes, you can consider lengthening as opening and closing because it is opening the joint and closing the joint. There's no question about that. However, opening and closing is an interior energetic movement that actually is functioning in a spherical sense within each of the joints and cavities of the body. And so it's a very different feeling. Lengthening certainly is a part of what's happening, but that's not all of it. Just so that you're not confused about that particular point. Now, what determines whether you open at 70 or 80 or 50 or 60? It is when your body is really, really in great shape, and when you know how to do it, and when all the tissues of the body are responding fairly automatically, doing opening and closing, then you could jump to 80%. High performance, when you're going 80% as far as you want to go to maintain the circulation of qi, is not a wise idea to do until your body is prepared for high performance activity. Likewise, you can close a joint 70% with the same rules. But if you are using Qigong to heal what's injured, or if you have a sickness, then you're not going to try and do 70%. You're only going to go to 50% or 60% at most. So you can start building up the joints or whatever else inside your body is ill in order to become normal. So that's what the injured will be able to do with it. So that is what it is, plus or minus 10%, or maybe even more. Now, I don't think you're probably going to be able to see this very well, but I'm going to do it fairly close to the camera so that you have some possibility. This is physically moving this with my muscles and tendons. You can, if you were to hold my wrist, you can feel my tendons stretching and expanding. But this is opening the wrist and the hand and fingers and closing it. And this is not using the muscles. This is moving from inside the joints. And while the movement is similar, it isn't the same. So I don't know how much of that you could really see, but the limits of Zoom. So that's opening. This is happening inside of your joints. It has nothing to do with your hands and fingers and muscles or the external shape. It has nothing to do with how your skin is moving. So in openings and closing, it's more central to be able to do the closing. If you can close, you can open. But even if you can open, which is natural, you may not have the internal strength to close well. So there is a phrase in the Tai Chi classics which might be confusing. It says, first you open and then you close. And this is talking about physically opening in general, just getting all the contractions out of the body so that the body can somewhat lengthen. And then it starts working on how to close the internal elements so it can control those movements. It doesn't say you close first and then open. It says you open first and then you close. But the context is you are always opening and closing. It's talking about a much larger meta view. once you can embody the concept of opening and closing, then it is easier to have one joint or cavity or energy center in your body guide the openings and closings for your entire body. It's a bit like you choose the leader of the band. From classic Qigong, the places that are usually used in the beginning to be the leader of the band, to be the central point that everything is following by 1,000th of a second, are the spine, the lower dantian, and the qua. But it doesn't say it has to be. If for some reason you are always having difficulty with your elbow, for instance, then what you can do is simply make the opening and closing of your elbow be the point that actually leads every other opening and closing in your body, until you don't have a problem with your elbow anymore, and your elbow has fully integrated with the rest of your body. But normally, it is the lower dantian, the spine, and the qua that lead. Now, when this becomes a little where this becomes a little different is that in God's plane in the clouds, when it starts going into meditation, then the central point would either be your lower dantian, your middle dantian, or your upper dantian, depending upon exactly what sort of meditation procedure you're following. So I'm going to just do movement 1 here for a moment and actually show it using 3 different leaders. So first I'm going to have my wrist lead the movement. And again, I think it'll be difficult to see this, but maybe you can catch the subtle difference here. So this is the wrist leading all the opening and closing in the body. And then the dantian. And then the spine. So those feel different to me, but I imagine they didn't look hugely different to you there. At least I would presume that to be the case. Were you able to see any difference in that?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
I thought with the spine part, it was to me energetically different.
Mm-hmm. You know, I have a feeling that's partially because I have been working a lot with the Wu style using the spine. And that's been part of my current practice. So that could perhaps be part of what's going on there.
It wasn't Photoshop, right?
No.
No, he says, no.
So which one you decide to do basically comes down to, once you know how to do the movement, you play around with which one works best for you.
Uh-huh.
Want to know if your wrist is really linked with the rest of your body, then do the movements with the wrist being the leader. If you can see that the wrist is causing everything else to move with it, then you have a reasonable assumption that your wrist is connected to the rest of the joints in your body. You can do this with any joint or cavity. The reason why you would do this is simply that there are going to be times when you're wondering, reasonably so, if this part of my body is doing what it's supposed to do. Is everything in my body connecting? If you think some part of your body is causing a problem, but it's not clear, it's indistinct, then make that part be the center. And then you'll find out pretty soon if there's a disconnection. And this is how you can self-correct and you can self-know whether you're doing the movements well or not. Now we're going to look at opening and closing at the moment of the hands, the wrists, the feet, and the ankles. There are two basic chi flows in our body. Actually, there are three, but let's just go for the two really big basic ones at the moment, which most Qigong methods use first to get people to move qi through their systems. One, of course, is feet to head and hands, bottom to top, and then from the hands and head down to the bottom. So that's the vertical up and down flow of qi in your body. And I might say, in case I haven't said this before, if you look at a chart of the energy flows in China, the arms are always up like this. So the hands are the top. Often they're, in the picture, will be higher than the head. So, well, we often think of our hands being down. They actually think of them as being part of the top of the flow, just to be clear. The second way, of course, which is even in many ways more important, is from your lower dantian going to the top and the bottom and back into the center again, or what's called center to periphery. There is a third way, which is everything from both sides of your body converging into the center and both sides separating out to the sides. That's when you start playing around with the right, left, and central channels. So you have these, but in the beginning, the center to periphery one is very, very valuable. Now, external coordination and internal coordination are different. External coordination actually is relatively simple. Two parts of your body, or many parts of your body, moving in the same direction at the same relative speed and in the same relative time. But when you start talking internally, and you want to get your chi moving to all these parts of your body, that means that all these separate parts have to coordinate. You can have it going very fast from your dantian to heart level, and slowly from heart to throat, and then speed up to the top of your head. It all has to happen at the same constant rate, just like a large electrical power system. Electricity has to flow through all parts of the system equally. and it can't slow down at one point and then speed up afterwards. The term that is used in the modern age with computers is conductivity, excuse me. You need even, steady conductivity. And we're talking about doing this now inside your body. There is a thing in all of Taoist Qi practices that's called Liu Hu, which means 6 combinations of the body. I'm not going to go into what they are mentally and emotionally and spiritually. That's really the second part of it. But the physical part is very simple. Your ankles and your wrists, your hands and your feet coordinate. They are at the 2 ends of your body. And they must move in coordination. The crown of your head and your perineum must move in coordination. Usually that isn't emphasized as much. But in the 6 combinations, you're also including your knees and your elbows, your shoulders and your hips, the qua. So we need to get that qi to do these 6 combinations. And we will start off with the hands and feet. So number 1, if we look at your hands, how with your intent can you try to get your qi to move? Previously we have covered how to get your mind inside your body and your intent to move through your body. The Laogong point on the hand and Yang Chuan, the bubbling well point in the middle of your foot, are the 2 places where the energy of the human body most naturally goes and where it is most naturally opens and closes. Is everybody clear about where the Laogong point is?
Yep.
Yes.
That
Yes. Yeah.
if you take your middle finger and touch it into the palm, it will touch between the tendons of the index and middle finger. And that's right where the Laogong point is in the palm. Yang Chuan on the bottom of the foot is just behind the metatarsal arch in the middle of the foot. We'll talk a little more about that in a minute. If you want to have qi power circulate throughout your lower body, you do it from the bubbling well point of the foot. If you want to have it circulate through the upper part of your body, you do it through the Laogong point in the palm. So we also have to get your ankles and your wrists to move together. But intentionally, you have to feel the Laogong point in the palm, and the energy goes from your as the energy goes from your wrist to your Laogong point, and then spreads out to the tips of your fingers. In your legs, it goes from your legs to the bubbling well point, and then it spreads out to the tips of your toes. Now the wrists are fairly simple. As long as you have a little bit of opening in your wrists so that it's not collapsing, then you're going to open just 70% as far as it can go from there. And then you can 70% close back to the origination point. Hands and wrists are relatively easy. The bones in the palms and the hands and the fingers are going to open 70%, and they are going to come back to 30 before they actually close down. So you want to try to begin to think about that. Oh, I guess maybe the first thing is to really see how much can you actually open and how much can you actually close, so that you can work in the middle of that range. So I think it helps if you actually hold your forearm. You don't want to hold the wrist because that'll stop the wrist moving. But if you hold your forearm so it doesn't move, and then you can let the wrist and the hand open out and then close. And one of the ways you can begin to be aware if you're actually beginning to do this is you'll feel a pulsing in the Lao Gong point. You'll feel the energy begin to expand and contract and then spread out into the fingers. You probably won't feel a whole lot in the wrist.
Right.
But the Lao Gong point actually is the most open point in the body. You can feel more at the Lao Gong point than anywhere else. Although when we ultimately get to just doing the movements, we want to forget the hands. But we don't want to forget the Lao Gong point. So the feet, the ankles and feet are going to do relatively the same thing. So the foot also closes and opens the same way that the hand is opening and closing, but the movement is much smaller and subtler. You have to be careful with your feet. There is a tendency to clench them and try to extend them too far. So you have to let that movement of the feet be much smaller. And feeling the opening and closing of the ankles, you probably can do much better with that right at the moment if you stay seated. It is much harder to feel when you're standing on your feet. So also try at least one ankle and foot and see if you can begin to have any sense of opening and closing the foot and the ankle. And
David,
yeah,
this is internal.
yes, but it creates some outer movement.
Okay.
So, as I think you could see when I was doing it before, that it's not the same. It's not the big movement that I can do with if I
Muscles, yeah.
use all my muscles and everything. But it's not still. I mean, I'm actually creating movement by opening the joints. And it's a very different feeling. It's interesting. I mentioned before that when I do this, that I can feel the tendons move and expand and contract. When I'm opening and closing, they don't do that. The tendons in the wrist don't, in the forearm, don't do that contracting and expanding. So it's not the same thing. And you kind of have to recognize that you're not going to be able to do this very fully, sort of in this quick exposure to it. This is not the same thing as spending a year learning how to open and close. So that's one of the unfortunate drawbacks is you haven't done that. That would be a training you'd want to try to do at some point. So, can you feel anything in your feet, an ankle?
Um, not the ankle, but in the bubbling well point, there's
Mhm.
something going on there.
Well, that's good. Yeah, the ankle is very difficult to feel. Um, Even seated and not having weight on it, and it's even harder when you're standing up. Um, it's part of, you know how I often when we're just standing, I will talk about allowing the feet to soften and relax and to merge into the earth. That's Master Joe's words. Um, you have to let the ankles and feet relax and release in order to feel that. And we don't usually do that. We're usually using the feet. I mean, we're making them move. And actually, you have to really let go of that in order to feel the opening and closing in the feet and the ankles. So, when we talk about the feet, that they're kind of interesting because the center channel in your body throughout that runs throughout your body also reflects along the center line of the foot. So putting pressure on the bubbling well point, which brings energy up your body, is it's on that central channel. And so when you shift your weight back into the point at the back of the heel, Shimian, that brings energy down your body. And it's both of those are along the same central channel. So whenever you're doing anything with your feet, one of the things that's important is that your foot must not collapse inward or outward. Because if it collapses inward, what it's going to do is force the energy into the left or right channels of your body, not the central channel, which is what you want right now. There are very specific things you can also do with opening and closing the hand that can cause the internal pressure in your foot to make energy go up or down on the left and right channels of your body. But that becomes very important when you're doing sitting meditation. Just by a slight tweak in your foot, you can determine where you want to work on blockages in the left and right sides of your body, or you want to work on your central channel. So you also don't want to allow the arch of your foot to collapse on the floor. Don't allow the weight of your foot to shift to either the outer or inner edge. If it's equal, then the pressure along the center line of your foot is equal. So when you're standing and you're doing the opening and closing, so when you're closing, the energy is coming into the center, and when you're opening, and if I made this a little more apparent, it'll be a little easier to see me. So, in order to do that, we've talked a little bit about that shift of the weight, but I want to point out we always have the slight tuck of the pelvis, of the tailbone, so that it's pointing straight down to the earth. But the shift of that weight is caused by the movement of the pelvis, and it's extremely subtle. I am standing in the middle at the moment. Now my weight is forward. Now I'm back to middle. Now my weight is on the heel. I mean, the amount of movement is extremely small, and you want to keep it small when you make those movements. And you can use that to pull energy into the hands or body and to project it out. So you also can move your arch slightly and have the exact same effect. The arch can very subtly draw energy in and project energy out. So how you stand and move on your feet is very important here, obviously. The trick is to have the hand and the foot be doing it concurrently at the same time and speed. You want the pressure on the inside and outside of your foot to be equally pressing on the floor. And then you want to lift slightly from the center of your arch so that you naturally pull energy from the earth. And by having the arch spread slightly, you will push energy into the earth. Just as when you close your palm, you suck energy into it, and when you open your palm, you push energy out of it. But the central issue is just that no matter what you're doing, you are trying to get your hands and your feet together. They're both doing the same thing at the same time. Another thing which you can do as a separate exercise, but normally the presupposition is that you've done this with standing Qigong before you've ever arrived at doing Gods, is so what I would like you to do is to stand up and just feel that subtle movement of your dantian, of your pelvis, to move the weight to the bubbling well and then back to Shimian at your heels. So just for a moment, just stand up and we want to make sure that we're not doing it with our chest, but rather with the dantian and or you can think of it as the pelvis or the tailbone. Just find how little you have to move in order to do that. And you may even be able to feel how that changes the flow of the energy in your legs.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think that we have ever particularly done circling hands here, but I'm going to have you all do circling hands here, which is an exercise in which the arms are, it's as if you're holding a ball out in front of you. And you're going to just make a circle with your arms, but you're also going to have as you move the arms, you want the body to move with it. So the body is going up as the arms go up, and the body is going down as they go down. And so you're just coordinating that movement. And you don't have to worry at the moment with this about the spine particularly. We're really just trying first just to coordinate the two physical movements so that the arms and legs are moving together. And begin to feel that as you come up and then go down, that you're drawing the energy up and sending the energy down. So when it's coming up, you want the weight to be towards the bubbling well, and as it goes down, you want the weight to be subtly towards the heel. So this is just a way of beginning to work on opening and closing and using the movement of the body along with the arms and legs. Really, we're focusing principally on the hands and the feet and the ankles and wrists. So you're opening, closing, opening.
Mhm.
And if you want to make this similar to movement one, you can do this in either direction. Obviously, with movement one, we're opening as we come up towards the front and closing as we come in and down. So you're trying to get the movement of the Laogong point and the bubbling well together. And also that subtle shift of the weight and not allowing the weight to move into the edges of the foot. And ideally, you want to have a very steady feeling of the qi going into your feet and out of your feet. And eventually, it'll link to everything in your body. But you're going to use your two extremities to do it to begin with. So you can relax. So could you get some feeling of that with that?
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
yeah. And I think at first I really got it in the feet and then made that connection with the hands, so.
Good. Bill or Bill?
Yeah, I felt similar. It was good connection.
Yeah, it's a simple practice, but it's a really good one to begin to make that connection.
Yeah, yeah.
So, when we go into movement one, obviously, as the arms rise, the weight is towards the bubbling well, and as the energy comes in and down, it's towards Shimian. So you want to, as you begin to do movement one, you want to allow that very subtle weight shift to become a part of that as you begin to feel the movement of the energy in there. So I'd like you to try movement one and see if you can focus on that coordination of wrist, hands, ankle, and feet, and the subtle weight shift on the feet. Anyone have a question about that? Okay. Make sure you don't allow the arch to collapse. So as your hands come up, open your hands and your feet. And then close your hands and your feet. And begin to be aware of any other joints in your body that those movements are beginning to open and close. So your hands and your feet are the leader, and you want everything else to follow. As the energy goes up, it goes up the back of your spine. And as your hands come down, it's coming down the front of your spine. Let your breathing be very, very even. Make sure you're breathing with belly, front, sides, upper back, and upper lungs. As you think about the breathing, really especially focus on the upper lungs. And then you should find your mind getting clearer. So as we work through these, if you get each of the 6 combinations so it works well, it will not be difficult to combine all 6. But if you get them kind of half and half, later on, it will cause you great problems. So pause and relax. Yes.
No, I was just, thinking, several weeks ago, we really talked about moving back as we went down, right? And then it's like, yep, and you really feel that when you're, it made it, there were more connections I felt made.
Good.
From the various lessons.
Good.
Yeah. I thought you bringing in the breathing as you were prompting us really helped a lot tremendously.
Yeah.
That's, the breathing is important.
Yeah, you're always forgetting to breathe.
Don't do that, Bill.
Bad idea. But we're not always breathing as we should be.
That's right.
That's the difference.
So, any other thoughts or questions at the moment? So, begin to try to work this week with coordinating the wrist, hands, ankles, and feet, and feeling the energy begin to move a little more, maybe.
Yep.
Good.
Great. Good class.
Well, if nothing else, I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes,
Thank you.
all of you.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Yep, you too.
You also, David.
Will do.
Everybody.
David, I really need to go as well. The problem of going away for 5 days means 3 of those are working days. So I'm busy. Everybody's like, oh, I need to meet with you on Wednesday or Thursday then. So I'm just swamped and
okay.
have a deadline for a couple of things. I will do my best to practice while I am gone.
Okay.
That's always a little challenging. You're staying in someone else's house and someone else's schedule, but I'll do my best to do that.
Well,
did you get my check? Did you get the check?
I was gonna say, thank you for your check.
Now that took less time than it did last time, I said.
Yeah, I know.
I still sent it, I think I guess I sent it on Friday from the post office. I think that makes the difference, sending it actually from the post office.
Well, that could be.
Because if you put it in your own box, it may not go until later that night, right? So I think that was the problem the last time, and then who knows what was the problem. Anyway.
You had too much on your plate. That's your problem.
I do have a lot on my plate, but this is important to me. So as you know,
I'm glad you're doing this. That is important. I'm glad you're taking the time and have a nice time with your friends.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Although I have to say, we're in Chattanooga. We're actually, I think, in a suburb out of there, and I know that's kind of the mountain area. I was like, at first, yay, I'm going south. Their weather's the same as ours.
Yeah.
It's rainy.
Right.
I might
Oh,
get
you-
1 or 2 days at 70, but the rest of it's in the 50s and raining. I'm like, oh, yeah. But anyway, it's about being together with people, not about the weather. I'm not going just as a vacation here, but it will be one.
Yeah, you got to
Anyway.
remember that, not just
Yeah,
the
right.
location.
It is time off. Yes, it is time off.
And
So
that's
that's
good. I'm
That's
glad
good. I
you're
need
doing
that.
that.
I need that. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay, well-
anyway, yeah.
Well,
Driving, I'm flying to Kentucky and then I'm driving down with one of my friends, which is more fun than just flying right in and a little cheaper, but you
sure.
know, just add that time. So it'll be a beautiful ride, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. That's
It's a
great.
nice area of the country. Yeah, especially in spring, mostly in spring, actually. So, then it gets too hot. Anyway, all right, David, thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
I'm coming back like at midnight on Tuesday night, so I do plan on being on Wednesday's class.
Okay. Good. I'll
Okay, good.
see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.